Maybe I didn't turn it on. Okay, there we go. So when we look at it, it's a Muslim country only in that it's the number one religion there. But it's a democratic or republic country. It has a president that's elected, and they outlaw Sharia law and everything. But there are a lot of mosque and Islam people. Some are very conservative and some are very liberal, but yet you don't feel like you're in a Muslim country. Okay, let me just say that. There's over 85,000 mosques in the whole country. There's over 3,500 in Istanbul itself. What was the population in Istanbul? Is about 21 million, I think. It's a large, large city, all right? But it was clean. We saw no graffiti and no homeless people. It was very eye-opening, all of it. Just surprising, okay? So here's one of the mosques. It's called the New Mosque, but it's not new. It's by the Spice Market. And you go in, I just want to show you, they're beautiful. And it's almost like the Roman Catholic all through Europe built cathedrals. And you go there and you have to see the cathedrals because they're just magnificent pieces of work and art and drawings, even though it's full of idolatry, because they have all these imagery. Well, they are trying to rival that. This is all tiles they put up, and they're just beautiful. There's no way around it. They're just beautiful. Well, those are beautiful people right there. Here's when the lady was going to prayer, because they have a call to prayer, and I don't care if you're awake or not, at 5 o'clock, it's on speakers throughout the whole town, right? Loud speakers. You can't help but miss it, right?
5 a.m.?
Yes. That's what? She's going to say something. She didn't want me singing. You can say it. All right. So, and this is what shocked me the most. I thought it's like the Middle East, and it's just deserts. No, they have lots of mountains with snow, and they have a ski resort and everything. And much of the country looked like Oregon, the farmland, and then some of it looked like Eastern Oregon. It was just amazing. I did not expect to find what I saw. Yes.
Speaking of mountains, do they have Mount Ararat somewhere there?
It's way to the northeast part. Yeah. So if I put it on you want me to go back? I won't go back. Yes, I will. It'd be way up
in the corner.
Up there by Georgia. Yeah. Right.
Next to Armenia.
Next to Armenia. I'm sorry?
Is that Anne with the scarf? Yes. And do you have to wear the scarf?
Oh, when you go in a mosque, it's mandatory you wear a scarf. And so that's our friend from Coeur d'Alene and her husband, and they're wearing scarves. It's just being culturally respectful. It's not because you're worshiping in there. It's just you have your head covered. All right? So there's where you are, and we're just going to go through a couple things. This is Cappadocia. We can say it, but it's actual Cappadocia. That's how they say it, right? So you learn how to speak correctly when you're there, but we'll still call it Cappadocia, right? The reason I picture this is because the weird rock formations, but those are rock houses. See them carved in there all over? This one has a front porch and everything. And you know why they're there? Because Christians had to flee Roman persecution, and they fled to this area and lived in the rocks for their own safety. Christians. That's before Constantine made Christianity legal in the 3rd century, or actually the 4th century, 300, right? And so not only that, they had rock churches carved into these rocks. And so you can see the emblems there. And you go inside, they had mosaics on the wall, and they had domes, like you might expect like in a Catholic church. And I think I have a picture of, well, this is a home, not one of the churches. But it was amazing. You just realize how nice we have it in America to be able to have the freedom of religion and live in the homes we do, and we can meet in this place without any persecution. And God, thank you for that. Maybe it'll change, but we have it so well, all right? Yes. So that's, you know what that is right there? I had to ask. This long thing here carved out, carved out of rock, all this was. It was just a rock cliff. That's a table. You sit there and put your feet down. It was a community table for the whole rock village. Reminds you of the Flintstones, actually. It does. It really was. But that's how they lived. And see the ceilings dark? What do you think that the black on the ceiling's from? Smoke from cooking. Yeah, it is all up there and it makes it dark. It's just amazing. All right? So Paul on his first missionary journey went all the way up to Antioch of Pisidia and then reversed and went back to all the cities that he visited on the way up. And we're going to concentrate on the seven churches of Asia, but I just had to point this one out because this was kind of a highlight. There's 2 or 3 places that we were that were just spectacular. I mean, it made a big impression. And this one was one of them. We ate dinner in town there, and the people were so nice. There was this lady invited us all over to her house for Turkish coffee. They were just wonderful. But the reason this was important because it was Sunday. And there's a church here. It's called the Church of St. Paul. It's about a 3rd century church building. But it was built, they think, on the grounds where the original synagogue was. And synagogues where Jews always met, right? And where did Paul go on his missionary journeys when he entered a town? This synagogue. And when he went to Antioch, he goes there and I think it was 6 months. No, that was Ephesus, that one. But you know he was in the synagogue. Of course, the church was built after he died and named after him. But it's on the same location, and that's where we got to have our morning worship. And so I won't show you all the pictures, but notice he said he entered the synagogue, continued speaking out boldly for 3 months. That's what he would do. And there's where we were in the remains. There's kind of an altar you see there on the front. And there's a stone structure. Some of it's been reconstructed, but some of it's original. And that's where we sang, ate the Lord's Supper, had a short talk, and prayed. And now, it doesn't make your worship more special, because worship is special in of itself, because we're remembering Jesus Christ, his body and his blood. But when you are in a place where Paul most likely was, it just adds another element to it. And some people said, I'll never forget this time. Every time I eat the Lord's Supper, he said, I'll remember being here. Now, with that being said, when they say think, archaeology, it could be, we don't know for sure. It's not very often you say, we know exactly. Now, there are some times, but so when I say Paul was this is the site of the synagogue, they think pretty sure, but they don't know. And that's often the case because we're talking about stuff that's 2,000 years old, right? All right, so we'll go through that. So now we're going to look at the 7 churches. And they're in more of Western Turkey, because notice they're all here together by the Aegean Sea. What's Patmos there for, that island? Why? That's where John was exiled, remember? And they think when he died, he got buried in his tomb, and I'll show you a picture of it, the tomb of John on the mainland. And it's very likely that it actually was his tomb, because it would be like Christians to honor him by burying him in a big sepulcher. And so we got to visit that as well. So we're going to go through them. And these are the order they are in the book of Revelation. We're going to skip Ephesus and do it at last because it was the most magnificent, okay, to me. But first of all, Smyrna. Now, remember he said, I know your tribulation, your poverty, talking about the Smyrnan Christians. You are rich and slandered by those who say they're Jews, but you're not, but are a synagogue of Satan. Don't fear about what you're about to suffer. The devil's about to throw some of you into prison, and you'll be tested and have tribulation for 10 days, a complete thrashing. So that's interesting, talking to these Christians. This is all that's left. It's in a town with the city all the way around it, and you look at the Agora, this is the shopping district of it, and that's all that's been uncovered. So we didn't get to see much, but that's the ancient ruins of Smyrna right there. Now, I say that because that's Smyrna today in which it's located. You have to go walk down these streets, and here's these ruins right there. What in?
Izmir.
Izmir, what it's called. That's the modern name of the city, Izmir, all right? And they're very modern cities too. I was surprised. You feel like you're in any American city at all. So then we went to Pergamum. This was spectacular. Now, in the day, when you're always worried about enemies conquering you, where would you build your fortress or your city? Up high. And that's where we are, up high. And that's always the case. And then you have a walled city as well, so they have to scale the hill and then try to scale the wall to attack you.
The wealthy were up high in the city, and the peasants were down low. And the thing that was interesting is that the wind was unbelievable.
It was when we were up there.
And they lived in wind.
But during the time attack, everyone would come in the walls,
Yes.
right? So this is Pergamum, and of course, John wrote to them, Jesus did, and John recorded it. I know where you dwell. It's where Satan's throne is. And we read that, and we're like, what does that mean, where Satan's throne is? I think we have a clue, and I'll share that with you. Yes?
Probably a silly question because it is old. But do you know what the major destruction was caused by?
Oh, often it's earthquake, but mostly it's enemies attacking them. And when they attack a place to show their power, they usually destroy the city totally. And then all the materials recycled to build something else. Because these stones are quarried and they're very valuable. But that's what happened. I asked that same question. Like, where did it all go? Well, they take it and recycle it and build something else. And some of this had a lot of marble, and it had to be imported by ship across the seas to get it there because there's no marble local. And you say, why did they spend so much money? Well, Rome and these countries did it to show we're in power, we're majestic, and you're not. And it was all a power play. And that's important. The columns and everything, it's just so majestic. It would blow your mind, really. Yes?
Solomon also brought so much stuff
Yes.
to build the temple.
Solomon did the same thing. That's right. So
What is that setting on right there? What's that water?
that's, I don't remember the name of the lake, but it's a lake at the bottom, right? And we parked at the bottom, but what we're going to see on this hill, there are 5 temples. One actually for Augustus, one of the Caesars, then Trajan, then the altar of Zeus. He was one of the gods. They're full of idolatry. They worshiped all sorts of gods because they're polytheistic, right? The temple of Athena, that's a goddess, and yes, thank you. And I say that because you dwell where Satan's throne. There's idolatry all around them. We're going to show you some of these temples that there were. But we had to go up by a tram or else walk, and that would have taken too long, and we're too old. Heather?
I just want to say something about that former slide, if I may.
Yes?
In the 1st and 2nd century, the Christians were accused of being atheists.
Because they didn't.
That's in the early Christian writers, and they had to combat that and refute it, and they had explained to the Romans and to the Greeks, is my understanding, that they're not atheists, and that's because they did not acknowledge
Right.
these gods, and it's
They're-
just interesting.
Right. There's all this idolatry around them. Right. So when you get up there, there's some more crew. And then there's the temple of Dionysus, and there it is destroyed. That was one of them. And then you go, here's the temple of Athena. And notice it's gone because all the materials have been recycled, but some of the columns are still there. And it was very majestic. These were not just insignificant buildings. And the best one is coming up. It's the altar of Zeus. And see, this is going to be an open air theater. I got another picture of it. But see that building there on the top? That's a picture of what they think it looks like. You know where it went? The Germans came over and took it down stone by stone and imported it all to Berlin. And that's where it is right now. The very temple to Zeus. And look how ornate and beautiful it is. And I go, why did they do that? Because they could. And can you imagine the cost to ship that and dismantle it and put it back together? But that is the temple to Zeus, this altar here. Very magnificent. So we had idolatry. And remember, Jesus said, you live on the throne of who? Where Satan is. It's all around you. And not only that one, we see the Temple of Trajan, just beautiful columns. And look at the ornate work on the top. And it's stunning because they didn't have the tools we did. Someone had to do that by hand. And when he messed up, he had to start all over again. How do they make those fluted columns? And they're perfectly round, and you had to do it all by hand. And they're not out of shape. They're perfect circles. It's just amazing what they could do. And they did it just because they could to show that we are powerful, right? And we're rich. Here is the steepest open-air theater in the whole world. Because Romans would always put their theaters on a hillside. And that would make sense because the seats are going to go downhill rather than build a structure to make them go up. They just always did it this way. And this is the steepest one in the world. That's what we were told. And see that lady right? There's a person sitting right there. See her? She was from Canada, and I was visiting with her when I was taking pictures because I was standing right by her. And said, you on a tour? And we talked, well, she's on the same tour of the 7 churches. And I said, boy, isn't it amazing? They could hear people all the way down at the bottom because it's way down there. She said, yeah, I went down there and I read the 7 statements to the 7 churches, and my friends were in the top, and they heard me like I was standing right next to them. Because it's so well designed that it would just echo all the way up the hill. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, you don't. Remember that because we're going to come to Ephesus. And I think there was a problem in Ephesus with Paul. There was a riot in the theater. And he thought he was going to lose his life there. All right? So there's Pergamon. That's where the Christians had to deal with this. Now, of all these churches, I'm going to say none of them exist anymore. None of them.
But did they use that amphitheater type thing at all?
Did who use it?
The people that lived there.
Oh, yeah, obviously. They had performances, they had theater, they had this. Now? Not this one, but some are being used because they've been rebuilt that people sit on them and they use them. Yeah, so that's a good question. In fact, the one at Laodicea, they're rebuilding right now too, and you'll see it. We'll see it in a second. But none of these Christians, you can't find a church to worship with in Turkey. But were they faithful unto death? You know some were. You know they were. They were overcomers in the face of all this adversity. Yes. Someone had their hand up?
That kind of answered my question. I was going to ask. There were no Christians there.
No.
Non-Christian.
Yeah, and I talked about how about could we start a mission work with it? It'd be very hard because of the Muslim population. But in some area, there's a couple churches that I've heard of, but I'm not sure where they are. Thyatira. Notice that we're in the city, and there's Thyatira. That's the ruins in the middle of a metropolitan city, and we went there, and we'll show it. But remember, Jesus said, I know your deeds and your love and faith and service and perseverance, and your deeds are greater than at first. Isn't that the best thing the Lord can say? That what you're doing now is greater than what you did at the beginning. That means we're growing and maturing, right? But I have this against you because you tolerate the woman Jezebel. And we talked some about that. That's this church. I mean, you look at it, it's close to the coast. There's Izmir, and that's where we're up, just not very far from it. And these are some of the ruins. There's not much left. And we're more interested in the turtles walking around on the ground because there were big turtles. I don't know why, in the middle of a city. But there was an old church building there that you could see as well. The ruins of a Byzantine, that's like the 3rd or 4th century church building. All right? But not much. But we read at each of these places the letter that Jesus gave to each church. We read it, and which is really nice to do, right? Now, the next one is Sardis. It was magnificent. But notice Jesus said, I know your deeds. You've got a name, you're alive, but you're what? Man, that's quite a stark rebuke. Be constantly alert and strengthen things remain which are about to die, for I have not found your deeds complete in the sight of my God. Your deeds are not what? Completed. When can we ever rest on our laurels and say, oh, we've done enough? Never. Our deeds are never completed. And once we think we're alive, that's when we die. Like, hey, we've arrived. No, we're dead. There's no church there now. But we're going to look at some of the things they had to deal with. This is called a Roman gymnasium, where Roman gladiators and people, they would exercise, often naked. And we're walking to it, and it's a UNESCO site, as a lot of these sites are, World Heritage sites. But the beauty in this place, that's just the corner there. They're looking up. It's so ornate. And this is where they had a bathhouse and they would exercise. It's a Roman gymnasium. But it's so beautiful. It has nothing to do with the church, but it's some of the sites we saw. Because I don't know about you, but I often think they're kind of archaic, almost cavemen back then. No, they lived lives just like us, with luxury and riches around them. But they had the rich, and they also had the peasants and the poor. There's nothing different than what we deal with today. Now, but right by it is one of the largest synagogues in the whole world. And it was a Sardis synagogue. And they had these mosaic floors, and we got to go through it. Now, that would be a Jewish place, right? So this was built after the time of Paul, so you can't say Paul was actually in it. But this is the picture of the temple to Artemis. And it's been destroyed because they plundered all the material. But see that little rock building? That's called Church M. And it's like a contrast to this beautiful temple to a false god. They built a little church building right by it, and that's where Christians met in the face of this idolatry. And I like this picture better because here it is. See on the left right there? Right there. And this all were the magnificent towers of this building to Artemis. And do we deal with the same thing? We might not have buildings to gods, but do we face idolatry all around us? People worship body, the sex and power and money and sports, everything, right? It's the same kind of thing in many ways. So we'll go through those real quickly and get back. But these are some of the ruins that are left over. Philadelphia. It's the modern city of Alessar. But again, it's in town, and that's all we could see of it. We walked through it. But that's the city of brotherly love. That's one of the churches. Yes?
Back one, it looks like a lot of farmland in the back.
Yes, it's beautiful. A lot of agricultural, grapes and olives and all sorts of things that we would grow here. It's very beautiful. I was stunned by it, actually. It was rolling hills. So in this one, he says, I know your deeds. I have put before you an open door, which no one can shut, because you have little power and have followed my word and have not denied my name. I love this. Who puts doors in front of us that are open? In other words, doors of opportunity. Jesus does. And who can shut them when he opens them? And people were asking me on the trip, how have you grown so much at the church at Dallas? Because we had 82 Sunday. Isn't that amazing? And we have grown. Who opened the door? Because we've been asked, God, open the door for the opportunity for the word. Has he done that? And it's amazing. But are we done with our work? No. But if he's opened it, who can close it? No one. We just have to be bold and walk through it and continue to, strive, knowing our deeds are not done yet. Even though we think we're rich, we're still poor. You know what I'm saying? Spiritually, we just have to keep on growing. So that's Philadelphia.
So what are those towers?
Those are, this is part of the marketplace, as I remember it. And so they would hold up big structures behind them, and all that's gone, the roofs and everything.
Was that called an agora?
Yes, an agora. That's the exact word, the agora. All right? Laodicea, amazing. That's the next church that Jesus writes to. I know your deeds. You're neither cold nor hot. We all know this one, right? I wish you were cold or hot, but because you're lukewarm, neither hot or cold, I'm going to vomit you out of my mouth. That's very picturesque. Now, just like the one church, Pergamum, they lived where the throne of Satan is, there's a background to this one too. And when you're there, you get it, all right? But this is a Roman road. These columns, some have been put back together because they were knocked down. But this would be the main road, and there's ruts in the road where chariots went through over and over. But from here to these are all shops on the side, and there would be a roof over all the shops. So can you imagine this beautiful road, chariots going up and down, and aligned with shops with roofs on both sides, and people just, selling their goods and their produce and their wares. But that's what we see right now. Now, when you look at this, here's Laodicea, here's Colossae. It's not one of the 7 churches, but it's right there. Paul was there, right? Or wrote to the church of Colossae.
They were supposed to share letters too.
Right. Here's Hierapolis, and that's mentioned once in the Bible. We went there, but it's like 6 kilometers away. This is maybe 8. Now, why do I point that out? Because when you go to Hierapolis, it's not very far away, you're going to see these travertine pools. Everyone seen pictures of them? This water comes up to the ground. They're hot thermal pools full of calcium carbonate, and then when they dry, they create this white rock, and they make these pools that are just, now, this is a picture of the way it used to look. The water's drying up for some reason. They don't know why. So they're not as beautiful as they used to be. But this was hot, medicinal. People would take trips up there. There's an a theater there carved in the hill. And Philip's tomb is there, where they think he was buried. Philip the apostle, the evangelist, right? The Ethiopian eunuch, remember that story, right? And we didn't have time to go up and visit it, but it's an amazing place, this here. But this is hot medicinal water that people would make journeys to in their day, just like they do today, like a spa. Then the other side, we have Colossae, and it was known for its cold, refreshing water. They had an abundance of water. So you have the hot, and you have the cold, and in the middle, what is it? Laodicea, they had no water supply. None. So they had to bring their water in through pipes, and that's a clay pipe and rock, and they would seal the joints with lead. Oh, that's real healthy. They didn't know that. They did. And that water would always be what? Lukewarm and poisonous. And sometimes we drink lukewarm water, and on a hot day you vomit. So he said, I wish you were hot like Hierapolis, or you're cold and refreshing. See, hot's not bad and cold's not bad. It's good, isn't it? But you're just lukewarm. I'm going to vomit you out of your mouth. He's drawing on the reality to make a spiritual point. Are there Christians like that? They're just lukewarm. And then when you see that and you put it together, and you can see from this, you can see those pools in the distance, just across the valley. And so when Jesus is talking about, they knew exactly what he's talking about. Yes?
One thing that's impressing me is the mountains and the view.
Aren't they beautiful?
Those things are probably like they were always.
We had to drive through those mountains there to get there. And I'm just like, I had no idea. Paul had to walk over these things. And I thought he just kind of just walked. It was easy. No, it was an arduous journey. And then sometimes it's in the cold and the snow. And they had to pick the right season. That was a tough guy.
Do you know what those mountains are?
I don't know what that range is, no. Huh? Yes.
What was the season when you guys were there?
It's just beginning the summer, so we were in perfect weather. It got warm a couple days, but it was perfect. Perfect, 70s. But it's going to get hot, you know. But, and actually, the trees are just blooming. They're like, a lot of them are just leafing out. They were like 2 weeks behind us, or 3. It was surprising. Oh, there's poppy flowers everywhere. Yeah. Here's the theater there at Hierapolis. One of them, an outdoor. It hasn't been totally excavated, right, at the time. Here's another smaller one, and they're going to use it because, see, they're restoring it. So you'd have a platform, and you could have performances there. And, yeah, here's the poppies. Yeah, I posted that. These are some of the promenade behind it with the high columns. And, again, they'd have roofs on both sides. Huh? Yeah. All right, you're so funny, honey. And look at the artwork on those, because those you don't see it, but they all were topped with these type of things on the top, right? And it's just, and then roofs going over on the side. Just stunning. Now, there's a church here. It's called the Church of Laodicea. It's a Byzantine church, but it's very impressive. I didn't even have the time to go through it. But guess what it has? What is that? 4th century, what were they doing? Immersing. And that's one of 3 that I'll show you, okay? And it just tells you, you know, that was just the norm. Everyone knew it. Okay, we're almost out of time, but Ephesus. It's the longest place that Paul's recorded staying, 2.5 years. And it says in the text, as is custom, he went into the synagogue and he taught for 6 months, but when some people become hardened and started contradicting the word, Paul withdrew with the disciples from the synagogue, and it says he met in the school of Tyrannus for 2.5 years, teaching daily. That's amazing. He taught daily in one school with a small group of disciples for 2.5 years. The very next verse says, and all of Asia heard the word. And wait, how does that happen? One school, every day, teaching God's word, and all of Asia hears the word. Because Ephesus was a major city, 250,000 people. That's huge. It was second in many ways only to Rome. It had the 3rd largest library in all the known world, second to Constantinople and the one in Alexandria, I think, if I get them right. No, it's Alexandria, and I don't remember the other one. It had the 2nd largest theater, second only to the one in Rome that you can still see. And it was a place of business and commerce and education, and people would come from all over because it had one of the 7 wonders of the world. It was the temple to Artemis. And they would come and they would worship there and make a pilgrimage, and all the locals had little shrines, silver shrines of Artemis, and they'd sell them to people, right? And Paul said, there's no other God this is no God at all, and that's what caused him to get in trouble, right? It caused a riot because they were losing all their money. That's why teaching in one place, people would come there and they'd attend this school and they'd go back home and they'd share the gospel all across Asia. And can that happen here? If we just invest ourselves in just learning God's word, and then people go out and share with others, amazing things can happen. Let's take a peek at the city. He said, I have this against you, though. He said, you lost that'd be the worst thing. They were passionate and excited, and that'll be the end of this church if we lose our first love, our passion for the Lord, our excitement. And he says, therefore, remember where you have fallen, repent, and do the deeds you did at first. Or I'm going to come and I take your lampstand away. When you remove your lampstand, there's no more church, right? And there's no church at Ephesus. They're all gone. So, it doesn't mean the Christians were lost. The faithful ones are in heaven, aren't they? Okay? So, here is from the tomb of St. John. Because I don't think I have pictures of it. Well, I do have one. But it's looking towards the Aegean Sea where Paul came in on. But do you see a sea out there? It was right there, but it's all silted in. And so now this was a great port city, but the sea is like 3 miles out farther now. It was a harbor. Well, it made it a port city. People came and traded goods. If I had time, I'll talk about the China trade bringing spices, and we looked at a camel palace. It's amazing, most amazing thing in the world. But that's for another time. There's Ephesus on the other side of that hill, and we're going to go see it in a second. And see this little tower right here? That's all that remains of the temple to Artemis, one of the 7 wonders of the world at that time.
They call it Diana too, right?
Yes, that was her other name.
One Greek and the other Roman, is that why?
That's right. So we look at it. Here's the Basilica of St. John, where they think he was buried. And guess what we see? Another baptism. Here's the picture of what they think the temple was like. Again, a wonder of the world. And there were 7. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon was another. You know, it was an amazing place. See the harbor right there, right? Of course, it's all silted in and gone. You want to see how it looks now? We got to see it and visit it. Here it is. That's all that's left. When it was destroyed, they took and built the place for John's, the basilica. They just recycled the materials, but they just reconstructed that one stone for one pillar, and that's all it's gone. Who wins, Christians or idols? Jesus Christ or Zeus? You can tell always who wins, who is victorious. It's always Jesus Christ. And it's so impressive because all these temples are gone to all these idols. All of them. Destroyed. But the church still lives on, doesn't it? Yes.
Traveling throughout Europe, you see all these beautiful cathedrals,
Yes.
synagogues and everything, but not one is active.
They're all empty.
They're all empty,
They true.
open for tourists.
Yeah, they're museums now.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and they have concerts just to pay the bills, right?
Yes.
It's true. So this was impressive. On top of that temple, there was a crane building a nest, and I took out a picture of it. That's all it's good for now. It's a bird nest. I think he's safe. See it way on the top? You can see and there he is flying away right there. See him up there? But then he came back, and I got that picture. So here's the road through Ephesus. And I only can do abbreviated because there's so much to show.
Well, can I just say something really quickly? It's 250,000 people, and most of the city has yet to be excavated, only 1/10.
10% has been excavated. And this is what we're seeing.
And you're seeing 1/10 of the city.
Yeah, and we passed the agora, the market. Again, the same idea, columns, and these would be all the shops, and there would be roofs over all of them on both sides. And Paul walked on that road. You just know he did, that street. So you go down it, and they have temples to other people. Hadrian was one of the emperors or something, right? They're always building, temples to themselves to be worshipped. And of course, it's just a room. I showed that picture. That's a public latrine. And you sit on those things, and water's running through the troughs below, and they gave you kind of a sponge on a stick to clean yourself. And there were no dividers, and so have at it. But that's modern technology right there, all right? For 250,000 people, you got to get rid of all that waste. So they had sewers in the street underneath those stones that would run all the way out, all right?
Do you know if those bathrooms were mixed?
That's a good question. I don't know. Yeah, or are they mixed gender? Yeah, that's a good question. Now, on the other side of this latrine, you have the road, and on the other side of the road, this is the shops. Look at the mosaic floors, the tiles. That's all hand done, each tile cut, and they're still here after 2,000 years. You're talking about an opulent, beautiful city in many, many ways. We went to the homes of wealthy. They've been terraced on the hills. These homes, each home was like 3,000 or 4,000 square feet with amazing tile floors, and look at how they plastered and put things on the wall and pictures and paintings. We think they lived, no, they lived opulent lifestyles. They were the rich, though, the very, very, very wealthy. We could show more. This is a library at Celsus, and it's the third most important, largest library in all of the area at that time, full of parchments, and they all got burnt except one parchment. That's what we were told. Everything was destroyed. But again, it's a beautiful structure. They have these ladies of wisdom. There's 4 of them. There used to be statues on the top row, but they're all gone. Of course, everyone gets their picture. This is an iconic picture to put on Instagram and Facebook and all that. You just have to get your picture here. So, but here's the great theater of Ephesus. They say you can tell the population of the city by how many people can sit in the theater, and it's 10%. So this could sit 25,000 people. So they think the population was 250,000. And so when Paul got in trouble by saying there is no other God but the one and true God, because gods made by hand, or men are not gods at all, it caused, they filled this theater, all the craftsmen and the men of Ephesus, and for 2 hours are throwing dust in the air saying, "Great is Artemis." Well, we know what that temple looks like, right? There's one tower left, right? And Paul wanted to go in because they drug his friends in there and they were going to kill him. And he said, and they wouldn't let Paul go in because they were fearful for his life. And Paul says in the Thessalonian letter, we were under the sentence of death, but God delivered us. And it all happened right here. We're looking at it. And he got out of town. Yes.
State the obvious. He wanted to go in.
That's what it says in the text.
Show his heart for the truth, and he's just like, if this is my last, I'm imagining my
Yeah.
last hour, I'm gonna let him have it. They're gonna know the
I guess. He knew no fear. Right.
And if you go back up the street that he showed and around the corner, that's where the city clerk would have been.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was pointed out to us. They showed us this.
Remember the city clerk went in and dismissed the crowd? Yeah.
And he had to run, and he ran down that street to the
Yeah.
theater.
Right. So that's where he said they were yelling. This is from Acts 19. So I just quoted it. On the other side, there's a Church of Mary. This is the first church building dedicated to Mother Mary, right? And the reason it's important is because it's one of the first church buildings after Constantine allowed church buildings to be built because Christianity became legal. But the Council of Ephesus was held here, where a lot of church members, and they were debating, arguing, was Jesus God in the flesh, or was he just flesh? Or there was a debate about that. And it was decided at this council, at this church building, that Jesus was both God and flesh in the same person. Well, that's what the Bible teaches, right? But it was a big debate at the time. And of course, we're talking about several hundred years after Jesus walked on the earth. Okay? Guess what we're going to see there in this church building? Yeah, another baptistry. You know, that's like in the 5th century now. What are they still doing? Baptizing for the forgiveness of sins. Yes.
The point to be made is that it didn't even register until I went there that Mary died there.
That's what they believe happened. That's where she would died and buried.
John took her on and brought her into his family.
Because just up over the hill is the Basilica of John. And what did Jesus do on the cross? John, behold your mother, and mother, behold your son. And so their tradition says they're both buried in the same locale. And there's no reason not to believe that, because it makes sense. They would honor her, right? And especially John himself. So that's why Ephesus was so amazing, because there's so much going on. So here's where we conclude. Jesus ended every letter with the same words. He who has an ear, let him hear. And we all have ears, but he's talking about the ears of our heart, right? He who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. So in many ways, God's talking to us, isn't he? And someday Salem's going to be ruins. You think so? It's very possible if the world still stays around that long. You know, this country is just a pipsqueak country. We've only been around 200 years, 250. And we don't know how much time we have. But to him overcomes, to each church he made a promise. He says, I'm going to grant you to eat the tree of life. Even if you have to die for me, you're going to live forever. You will not be hurt by the second death. What was that? Remember we talked about the second death? That's being cast into Hades, the lake of fire. Total separation from God forever. You're not going to be hurt. I'm going to give you hidden manna. What is that? Manna is the bread of life. Jesus said, I am the bread of life. Whoever eat me will never die, you know, and that's what the idea, the hidden manna. I'm going to give you authority over the nations. All those people that are doing these power plays by building these beautiful cities and temples, you're going to have power over the nations because you're going to sit with Jesus on his throne. I'm going to clothe you in white garments, and I'm not going to erase your name out of the book of life. That means where's your name right now? In the book of life. But if you're an overcomer, will you have anything to fear about your name being erased? Never. And then he says, I'm going to make you a pillar. This one stands out to me now because what did we see in all those cities? Pillars. Pillars there was like 400 in the temple of Artemis. Pillars showing strength and power. But for the Christian that overcomes, you're a pillar in whose temple? The temple of God. Isn't that beautiful? And it's drawn on all this imagery they lived with every day and saw and were in awe of. And Jesus says, don't worry. You're going to be something even better than that. So you look at all that. He says, I'm going to grant you to sit down with me on my throne. And so that's the only answer. We're going to be what? We're going to be overcomers. We'll never quit. Never, ever quit. And we're just going to overcome no matter what comes our ways. Because Satan he's good, but he's got nothing against Jesus, right? Jesus is more powerful. So, that's our trip to Turkey. I hope it's inspiring because it was us, to us. And again, I didn't see anything that's not already in there, right? It just comes to life sometimes, like you said, in 3D rather than just on the printed word. All right, we're going to have a song and then whatever, and then we'll finish our service.
Okay, thank you, Jack, for that. Really good going through the 7 churches. So we're going to send 790, 790. And the invitation song would be 664. So you have time, just mark that one, 664. What a friend we have in Jesus. $790. Do mi soul, sing the wondrous love of Jesus, sing